also joined live from a stand in London by Bobby, who will stay on mute, I think, because of his bandwidth. But Bobby's our commercial director in primary care. And as Nigel said, we acquired AskMyGP at the back end of last year. And so for this meeting, I just kind of want us to get to know each other in terms of catching up on where we've got to with functionality, what we're seeing in the market, what we're seeing in the data around Lincolnshire, and then hopefully in future meetings, we'll be able to talk about what we might do together and what we might do more of in terms of how we can help you guys to innovate from the front of the market where you guys are delivering primary care. So if you want to use the chat to ask any questions as I go along, please feel free. You can also come off mute and or politely raise your digital hand. And if Nigel and or Bobby could just keep an eye out for that for me as I'm going through the material. Okay, so I guess the first thing is who are Evergreen. I know some of you may have joined the conversation when we did a webinar when we acquired it, but Evergreen is an organisation that exists to help people to hopefully live a happy and healthy life in a connected community. And we started off as an app to offer NHS patient-facing services in primary care, and we now do a whole bunch more. So we have AskMyGP around digital access and managing flow in practices, which we're going to talk about today. We have a thing called Evergreen Connect, which allows you to support patients to have their own data and for you to push and pull requests and to share that information with you as practices. So for simple things like blood pressure or measurements or mood assessments and so on. And we also operate our own practices, which I'll talk about later. We've recently started operating one in Lincolnshire. So hopefully as a provider across the spectrum of primary care, we're able to offer a pretty unique perspective. But it also means that in talking to you guys and talking to our own practices, we hope we can innovate faster and get stuff done in the system for you that's going to help you to get the most out of AskMyGP. So our mission in a nutshell, I mean, we want to deliver the capability for you guys to deliver services in data-driven, local, digital connected and healthy communities. And we see a role for giving people access to information as well as access to care. So we want to inform people, we want to have health information and knowledge shared widely and also localized to help people to be healthy and get the best care. How do I engage with other local wellbeing offers? We've recently started a conversation with One New Lincolnshire, for example, about how do we get some of their content in the app. And so this is about how do we help patients to become stakeholders rather than just consumers of transactional services in primary care. And where we can, we want to use technology to do that. So I'm going to show you hopefully some of the improvements we've made to AskMyGP. We've got a bunch more ideas, and we want to work with you guys to see them in the wild. And then the final thing is we want to help find a way to talk to citizens about what the future of health research will look like. There's over 1 million users of the Evergreen Life app in the country that have just decided to download it, and they donate their data anonymously for research. And we're doing some interesting projects around the country with that. So, I mean, I showed this slide before when the Evergreen Life slide. This is what I would show to a PPG, for example, around what's the point of an Evergreen Life app and a PHR? Well, it's download the app and get engaged and connected with your health and well-being. When you need help, you can use the app to access your GP, but you can also own your personal health record as little or as much as you want to, and start to maintain a currency of information around how you move your body, how you eat, how you engage with other parts of the healthcare system, and be informed. And if patients do that, we're able to hopefully start to move the narrative from us being better organised at managing the demand out there for primary care, and instead trying to manage this relationship with patients as stakeholders. At the practice in Lincolnshire in Boston, the sidings, we've recently gone live with the app. So the app-led implementation of AskMyGP, where patients through the app press make a request. And that's the first practice in the country that's done that. There are about 3,300 citizens in Boston now that are connected to their health record, including record access to the practice. And I'm happy to take questions about that later in terms of how we've facilitated that and what we're hoping to do next with it. But before we get into all of that, let's look at some of the data in Lincolnshire. I mean, I'd love to get into the situation where you guys, A, tell me if this is helpful, and B, tell me if this is something you want to receive more regularly or talk through more regularly. This is now the data pack of what's going on in Lincolnshire with online consultations from an AskMyGP customer perspective, i.e. You and your colleagues. I'm going to walk you through some of this data. So I ran this on Friday afternoon, evening. So this is accurate, and all customers in Lincolnshire until that point. So, and we in the last period, we've got roughly 6% of list size using the tool across on average, which is lower than the national picture, but still really good in terms of as we'll see in some of the later data. Not to steal my own thunder. 71% of the work's coming in online. That's good. But we expect about 35% to stay on the phone, and certainly in the demographics you've got in semi-rural communities in Lincolnshire, that's to be expected. Really good median minutes time to close. So 196 minutes is the average time it takes for us to close an AskMyGP request in Lincolnshire, and there's 20 odd practices using it. Slightly, there's a couple in here that are still on our system that have since stopped using the system, but 27-ish practices. So what does the data look like in terms of the demand of the day? Well, this is pretty standard, right? You guys know, living it in the wild, that the reality is 8 o'clock and 7 o'clock are when things are busy. The week's generally the same. Weekends you don't have the system turned on, and the work builds through the week. So this first chart telling us, that this is when the activity comes in on days of the week, and then this is how it builds in terms of volume, and then where we do spend most of our day. So it's a pretty standard picture, and nothing stands out here from other regions that I would talk to about this type of thing. And a real variability. This is a bit of a spaghetti chart. I'm going to skip over it. By all means, look and find yourself if you can when you receive the slides afterwards. But there's a decent spread of practices with different percentages of their list size online. There's some more meaningful slides coming that will hopefully be a bit more accessible to you on this conversation. So this is the daily volume of stuff coming in. I mean, and the profile follows what you'd expect from general practice and AskMyGP customers across the country. We have a busy day on Monday, and then the rest of the week deteriorates down to the weekend in a steady fashion. I think what's really impressive here is the amount of stuff this is well above the national average of around 70% of stuff that's closed on the same day. So patients are getting a same day service. And I think that one of the things we should all be proud of is that in the context of the new health secretary talking about guaranteeing appointments within 2 weeks, I think that actually you're able to demonstrate that you're seeing, if you look at the last full week of September, high 80s percentages of stuff being seen on the same day, which is really impressive. And again, above the national average. Some of this data, if you're thinking I want to see this just in my practice, some of this is available in the report section in the live system. If you use that, and also if you want more slicing and dicing data, you just have to ask. One of the things we've invested in as part of Evergreen is the customer success function. So we can give you whatever data you need to help make these points in your own practices and in your own communities. And some of this, for example, in the back at the sidings, I'll be using in the next PPG meeting on the 5th of October. So how does it look in terms of a day? I mean, patient side. Well, the reality is that the digital equivalent of the queue outside the practice is here demonstrated in that big red line, 8 o'clock. We have a decent amount of our work comes in. One of the things I'm keen to think about in our practice in Boston, but also for you guys, is what happens if you open this up outside of when you currently turn it off. One of the things I think we differ in view from the original AskMyGP team is turning the system off actually doesn't necessarily mean you get to control the demand in the way you'd expect. And we've got other practices that leave it switched on for out of hours requests and are able to manage patient expectations that they respond during working hours. And we're planning to trial that in the sidings, and I'm happy to share how that goes with you in future conversations. But this is today. What happens is we take an amount of work across the county, and then you can see it peters off as we turn the system off later in the day. And then on the staff side of the house, this is across all the practices. What are we doing? Well, there's some early birds somewhere. Someone in the system is logging on staff side at 5 a.m. to do some things, and someone's going to bed late. Hopefully, it's not the same person, but the profile of the day is, again, as you'd expect, in the morning, lots of activity. So I mean, between, if you look at the just profile of the average morning across primary care in Lincolnshire, a massive amount of requests getting responded to in this time period for this chart, and that varies how are they, what's the split of the work, which is, I guess, less relevant here because obviously you're responding to patient requests. And then how does it impact on frequent flyers and patient uses? So this is a pretty healthy looking chart. We've got patients that use it, a lot of patients that are using it in this period. Well, this is an 8-week chart, using it once or a couple, using it once, a good number using it 2 or 3 times. And I think that's a healthy dynamic in a community where you're getting a same day response. You feel like you do want to engage with primary care. I've also got some interesting ones that I'm sure you as practice are individually managing. One frequent flyer who's made 42 requests in an 8-week period, which is extensive. So there's hope this type of chart helps you to manage that. But it's, on the whole, it's symptomatic of patients relying on a good service from an online provision. And this is one of the reasons why. I mean, in the period here, you're just over 3 hours, the average time, to do the maths there in my head, to close requests. This is the spread. So the one on the right is 24 hours in minutes, if you will. On the left hand side is obviously doing it within the first half an hour. This is in half-hour increments to start with, and so it's a really good picture on the left hand side of this chart. Obviously, you expect some complexity, and you expect some stuff not closed on the same day, and we separate out here weekend requests. Obviously, you haven't got them, many of them at the moment, but where they are, you'll see that obviously they're not usually closed on the same day. Now into the league table. There's not a league table. Obviously, this isn't a league table. This is just representative data, and it's completion time in this case, ranked by practice. And so this will vary based on how you use the system in reality, because if you're just using the system to get the request in and close it off, or and also to tick the online consultations quota, you're going to get a different set of data than if you're using the system to manage all of your flow. So recent go live, Spalding went live relatively recently, earlier this year. And that's them. And then obviously, I'm not going to call out in particular practices, but I'm interested in our team engaging with you guys in the conversation behind your own data. But there's some really impressive performances here around completion times. And then this is a chart that tells you, again, these ones to find yourself in afterwards. But this is unique patients as proportion of list size appearing in the data, and again, it's a pretty healthy percentage growing over time as you get more use of the system. You see patients adopt the system in bigger numbers, basically. How are they coming online? This is a really interesting chart. We often get asked about this in terms of digital accessibility and digital exclusion, and the vast majority, in fact, of requests across the county are coming in on mobile devices. We're seeing high iPhone and Android usage, and therefore the browsers that go with them. But then also some users using a PC, and so it's important that we as a company maintain the website offer. So as well, I talked a bit about the app already, but using the website is an important part of our AskMyGP, and obviously in a lot of cases we also provide the practice website. So we want to help work with you to do more with that over time too, but in continuing to offer both routes. So then, what's the scores and the doors in terms of online activity? Well, so it's pretty good across the piece. We're seeing 70%ish, as we said at the top of the stats part of the conversation, online. Decent percentage on phone, where the staff are making the request are making the request on behalf of the patient. And obviously in the 70%, I'm including their patients themselves and also patient proxies where they can self-register for them in the app. And the things they're coming in with, pretty consistent split between new and existing issues. Medication queries and other questions are issues that are areas where it's worthy of further analysis. So if you are interested as a practice, PCN, federation or otherwise, to look at the detail of what's in those requests, then we'd be keen to work with you on that. Things like medication queries are often, certainly in the sidings, go live with things not set up on repeat properly, or so some percentages from both of those categories I think can be diverted to patient self-service. If you're interested, then do let us know. We'd be happy to get granular on that data with you. Demographics wise, we've got a pretty good. We're also in pretty good shape. I mean, it's clear to me looking at this data, and look at a lot of this data these days, that you've been using the system for a decent while in a lot of cases, and from a governance standpoint, I'm here looking that we're able to offer the service to everyone that needs it. We're offering proxy access, and we can clear that's extensively used for children and also for more elderly patients, but also lots of use of the telephone by our elderly community, and also supporting different groups to also use the telephone. So in Boston, we've experienced obviously different Eastern European non-English first language speakers, where we're trying to other ways to engage those patients. But it's important that we have, for example, those people who speak those language on the phones as one example. And then percentage online, excluding the top tier, again, it's how you use the system. There's some really good numbers here in terms of percentage of patient population that's online using the system. So this is of the list size. We've got what percentage is online. Some really good numbers here, and I think some of the things I'm going to come to talk to you later about what else you could do with this is, when I talk to other areas that are not in this position, getting patients the first base of a common digital foundation is really important, and you guys are already doing some really good work there. Patients are used to being online, so hopefully some of the other things I'll talk to you about would, some of those that may be of interest, you could, in a better place to take advantage of. But are you doing what the patients are asking? Well, this chart tells us on the left-hand side what the patients are asking for in terms of how they're asking you to deal with their requests. On the right-hand side, it's what you actually did. And so we can see a pretty good split between what patients ask for and what they get. Obviously, a decent percentage of face-to-face, so 16, 17, 18% of face-to-face consultations, and that's what patients are expecting. So again, tells me of a community that's used to knowing what to ask of primary care, and you guys responding in a consistent way. So I think this is a good chart. What we look for in this type of data, so on the left-hand side again is what patients ask for, right-hand side is what they received. We're seeing really good movement between the tiers, because here we're expecting clinical judgment, triage, management of the system to allow the patients who ask for a phone message are being seen face-to-face where that's deemed necessary, and vice versa. So again, a healthy use of the system, but also some efficiency realised. Some patients ask for a phone call, get a phone call, ask for a message, get a message, and so on. And then looking at face-to-face percentages, some variability across the region in terms of who sees what. So sidings we just recently taken live with 20%, in the middle of the table, one of our practices. And obviously you can see other, you find yourselves maybe in that list. Split between our lowest in the country at the moment, one of our practices is using AskMyGP is 7 to 8%, right up to 30, 40 at the other end. So there's no right answer here. This is for you guys to decide, but it's I think in management information wise, it's good for you to be able to have this at your fingertips. And one of the other questions that we often get asked was was mentioned also in the fuller report around primary care, was this question of continuity. And I think that this data shows us that patients generally are asking for just anybody who can help them with the issue. Where they do specify a member of staff, the blue bar is telling us where we've then given them access to that member of staff if we're able to, and the red is telling well we've not, they've seen someone else. So again, for your information in terms of how you're responding to the patient demand, but useful in terms of communicating with the community. And this is I guess the punchline of patient feedback is, what do they think of the system when you turn it on? Well, you can see a pretty pretty consistent numbers on both AskMyGP system and also friends and family test. So if you add together good and very good, which is standard practice of friends and family test, September at the date I ran this was running at 86%, last full month 87% positive, which is really, really good, and up there in the country in terms of patient feedback around access to primary care. And the league table of the best and versus the not quite as best in terms of practices, but again, just to come down to how you use the system. Okay, I'm gonna pause there. I'll quickly just see if there's anyone with any particular questions, comments, observations about the data, or please feel free to put it in the chat or to raise your hand. On silence. I'll move on to talk about some things we've changed since the system, we've looked after the development of the system. Hopefully you're aware of some of these. If you're not, then my ask is that you contact us to if you want to get to grips with some of these changes. The ones I particularly want to talk about is forms at the front door, also labeling incoming requests and the workflow we built around them. The coded write back has been available for some time now to EMIS and System 1. I'll talk a bit about the patient contact widget, so you can bring up patients in System 1 easier, and also the appointment offers functionality. So I'm going to flick to the software to show you a couple of examples. So if I do that, hopefully you're seeing AskMyGP screen now. Thank you. So I'm going to log into the practice side demo system here. So so the first thing to in terms of forms at the front door, it's been in the system a little while now, but if we log in as this guy, so forms at the front door, we're on a mission to clear our backlog of forms that have been requested. Obviously, we're deliberately different to the other online consultation tools. We don't believe that repeating your life story to get every single access to primary care is necessary, but we also fully respect the fact that some issues just require that coded and detailed data. So we want to give you guys the flexibility. So if I show you a couple of examples, so here if I do new request, we've now got, instead of just consult your GP, I've got some forms and links that you can configure the buttons now and the order they go in when you show patients. So help me stop smoking is just a hyperlink I put in there, which takes me to a stop smoking service in Manchester in this example. I've also got a sick note request I put straight at the front door to the form I've built, and I say I'm asking as a patient, and then as a patient get that form to fill in. And the service we're offering here is we will build quickly and deploy for you whichever forms you want in either as a whatever level you are as a practice, as a PCN, or across the county, or as a federation. We've got a bunch of forms already, so we're working through publishing to live the various forms that others have asked us for, and we're trying to build a bit of a catalogue for you. And we're also going to work on the documentation so you can see what they are, because we've got different variations. I've got a UTI form over here and a UTI form over there and so on. But it's a great way. Now, the thing to bear in mind when you're thinking about forms is that you can code the answers and the combinations of the answers and the scores, and we can write that back to the clinical system, right? So the one we often demo in this example, if I just jump back a second, is the GAD7, or a typical scored form. But if I just go to a patient request for a second and look at the forms, open forms here at the bottom. There's a bunch of there's one that I've recently been building for a PCN I'm working with in Greater Manchester, which is around a health check. So for example, so if I send the patient the health check, in this case I'll fill it in for them. This is a hide PCN as featured in the full report as it happens, but we've got answers here that we're going to code and write back. And the thing I guess to think about is you can now think about using AskMyGP to as some of those instead of sending AccuRex messages out, or instead of asking them to in other ways to come in as part of your QOF recall agenda, you can ask them questions in questionnaires. So to go with that, another thing we're currently developing, and it'll be live in hide from hopefully from next week, if it passes testing this week, is the ability to create outbound requests to patients. So let me just walk that through whilst I'm talking about forms. So if I find a patient, let's find my guy. He's got a few things going on, but we're building the ability to make bulk requests. Like I said, I can't just quite demo it. We're a week too soon, but next month, hopefully we'll give you a full demo and walkthrough. What we're doing is this ability to create a request in bulk. So what it would look like is something a bit like this. And the text would be something like, in this case, healthy would like to invite you to complete this health check ahead of your appointment, right? And so what we've done is use the appointment in Hyde already used our software to manage their flu and COVID booking. So they've got drive-through clinics. They've offered some patients enhanced service with health check. So we've got that list of patients coming in at the weekend uploaded into AskMyGP. So you'll be able to upload the list and do a bulk request and say send them this form. From a patient standpoint, they get just like the same consistent user interface. So you can see my message at the top of the list here, healthy Hyde team, and I can fill that form in. So here's the patient perspective, filling it in. I follow a poor diet. How true is that? I used the wrong image there. Sorry, that's so small for the alcohol unit. So they can lie to you digitally about how much they drink in my case. And fill in whatever you want in terms of the form, send it in, and then you can give the patient a custom message. Again, part of this development we're building. So I know I've started off here talking about forms at the front door, but what I think forms gives you is a way to be able to use the base you've already created to evolve your use of the tool to be one consistent way to send patients things, because different messages from different tools, from different products are inconsistent. Some of the text messages from some of our competitors look to me like phishing and scam messages. And we also use text messaging. I don't think any of you guys have it turned on, but we want to make sure patients get this familiarity, if you will. So that's one thing we're doing on forms. And then this, back to where we started, this is possible to put at the front door. So I've talked about a fit note request, also something like online access. So we've got a form we're building for online access, so people want to get more access to medical records. So the next side of this is the workflow with the form. So when you design a form, you can decide in the system where it's going to go from a workflow perspective. So you can see these labels here. This one's got green sick note attached to it, and so you can use labels with forms, and you can also use them independently. So this is the sick note will be automatically assigned to whoever we want it to be assigned to from a group perspective. So when we build the template, we can say, when we get a sick note request from our sick note form, go straight to receptionist or whatever the process is in your practice, and it will assign it directly to that group. So you can bypass the triage queue. From the dashboard perspective, you'll just see on the groups, obviously I've just got my demo groups here, but you'll see the things that have gone straight to assigned to those groups without passing go, if you will. The various, so here's some notes, and in this example I've also got care homes set up that way. So forms at the front door is, you can change these buttons at the beginning of the requesting process, add as many as you like, make them specific to forms, as well as the process we already have where you can initiate forms from your side. Pause in case anyone's got any questions or wants to put their hand up about that. Give me a chance to drink some coffee as well. No, okay. So how do you communicate form? Oh, got a question, David?
David?
Yeah, I'm liking the look of this, actually. I think it's got quite a lot of potential, particularly for some of our quaff stuff. So I'm presuming we'll be able to create asthma forms. People send them out in bulk. People will fill them in, and then we can automatically assign them straight to the asthma nurse. Would that be about right?
Yeah, perfect. Exactly right.
Yeah, and med requests, because we get a lot of med requests through AskMyGP, and we're trying to sort of get rid of it in a way, because we really wanted it more for things that need a a GP or a nurse practitioner, but actually if they fill in a med request form and we can just send it straight through to reception, then we wouldn't need to worry about that. So I like the look of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. And yeah, absolutely, exactly as you described. To take your example a step further, the other thing you can do is what I'm doing in that health check example. I built two versions of the form: a patient-facing one and then a HCA one. And the HCA, when the patient, so we're going to keep the request open. When the HCA sees the patient, that's the one we've coded to go into EMIS. So they're going to ask them the questions again. They're going to weigh them and all the other things, and then they'll fit the practitioner in the request will add a form as an internal note, if you will. So the patient's not going to the patient, they're going to fill it in as my GP, and when they close the request, it's all parceled up to write back, which I'm going to show you shortly. So hopefully, I mean, and then the other one that's just been asked on the chat is can the forms be? Yes, the forms can stay on. Yeah, exactly. So when we set up a form, we say whether it's still there once the system's turned off to new requests. So you could just keep sick notes open or meds requests open. Yeah. Correct. So let's move on. I'll share my screen again. So let's remind me what I was talking about here. So yeah, so I'm just going to quickly also talk a bit more about a couple of other points just on the forms bits and pieces. So just to prove the kind of, I don't know if is anyone on the call using the write back yet? I don't see you guys now, but if you're not, I would encourage you to. It works really well. It works better for System 1 than for EMIS, in my opinion. But it's just, it's very, very straightforward for us to set up. So how it works in practice, again, it's linked to forms. Adrian, you've got
a couple of questions there, Mark. A couple of questions there.
Sorry, I was going to say, with the write back, that's where you can bring the information straight back into System 1, isn't it? I'm on the right bit. We've had a bit of a play with it. The only challenge we're finding, and you might find that other people have found a way around this, is that it has to the gateway has to be on and someone has to be logged into it. Our gateway is normally an operational PC, so it's doing something. So people sort of log into it and out of it through the day. Have you got any workaround for that so that it stays available, it stays working? Because obviously, as soon as someone logs out, it then you then lose the write back facility.
Yeah, I've just had the exact same thing actually at the sidings. We've my workaround is a virtual PC. So what we've because obviously System 1 supports that, and we already use System 1 in that way. So we have a virtual PC that we set up in our cloud, and then we log on to it with the user. So the only caveat is either one of our staff or one of your staff has to be able to. It needs to be someone with that permission to your organisation in System 1 needs to log on, and we can leave that in the background.
So you'd log them in with a password as opposed to using a card.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That would be a good solution. So it's just setting up. So it's setting up a virtual gateway.
Yeah. So we would set it up. Yeah. Exactly. So contact me afterwards, and I'll put me in touch with someone in the team.
We'd had a play and liked it, but that was the first thing that happened, was that somebody went and logged off the gateway. So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
No worries. Anybody else? I'll just quickly show you the write back screen. Let me just reshare that. Yeah, so basically, it's so far looks so similar to the copy and paste screen you're familiar with. The thing that's different is the ability to. So my favourite sport, because I'm not a real doctor, obviously. I know we don't want emojis, but we do want finding interesting SNOMED codes. So we add one, and we can add obviously some text, and we can say this is one I found. Didn't know this was a real. So you can add these codes into this as you go, just one off, right? If you've done a form, so if I find a GAD7, who did we do a GAD7 on? So I'd have to fill one in again. Left leg is hanging off. That's unfortunate. Interesting. I've recently built one at a form. This is for a practice I'm working with locally. This is a pregnancy risk factors form. So be as creative as you want in terms of the forms, and I'm trying to give a similar same day service you guys give your patients with billing the forms. I'm just trying to find a GAD7, so just bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna have to fill one in. I'll check. Right, so we'll fill one in. Yeah, I'll quickly fill it in on behalf of the patient. Get a score. Complete that. Let's then finish this request. Do my write back. It was a message in this case. It's going to give me the GAD7 score on the form, and it's going to offer to write that straight back into email, and I can obviously put others in. So then you know, anything you can code. So one of the things we get asked a lot about at the moment is observations. So we're doing some stuff around patients record your own blood pressure, and we want to do that not just for hypertension register and so on, but you know, from a wellness standpoint, getting people who might be at risk to send them some content about what is blood pressure and why should you measure it and so on. So we're trying to merge together the app content we've had for a while around well-being and bring that into this same outbound stuff from the practice. So you can say, here's, you know, what in this case one of our doctors talking about blood pressure. If you agree with it, you can perhaps send that out to your patients. And where I ultimately want to see this go is that this gets hyper local, and you guys feel able to either across Lincolnshire for your practice, for your patients, but you're able to adopt this and put your own content in here, so that we can outreach to other people. So I think that's forms. I think you're already familiar with these tags. These, obviously you can build these in the system, these little labels. If you haven't, I would encourage you to. You can do them for certain staff, certain patients, certain types of requests, and it's just useful for a way of segmenting work, as well as obviously if you want to route stuff to directly to certain groups. All right, so back to the agenda for a second. We've started on now into coded write back. The other thing I wanted to show you was appointment offers. So this is another thing I'm trying to work on, which let's just show you this for a second. If I just move back to PowerPoint. Just have a look at this for a second.
This is a quick video demonstration of how the appointment booking system works within AskMyGP. So here I've got a request that's come in from a patient regarding a rash on their skin. They've included an image, so I can see here that they have clearly got a rash, but perhaps I feel the patient would benefit from a face-to-face appointment so I can actually see it in the flesh to give that a proper review. So what I'm going to do is just reply to the patient. I'm going to send that. And then what I'm also going to do is send them an invitation to book an appointment. You can see I've selected myself as a clinician, face-to-face appointment at the Bramley site. I'm going to make it 10 minutes. And I'm just going to use this EMIS appointment slot type, which I've already set up. So you can see that the invitation has been sent to the patient. And on their side, they will have received a notification which will take them into the app, and here they will be able to see that they have an invitation to arrange an appointment with that particular clinician. They can choose book appointment. They can see all of the days when that clinician is available with that session type. So let's just go for today, for instance. Click confirm day. We can choose a time, say 11:20. Click confirm time, and then finally click the green button to confirm appointment. And then the patient is notified here in this tile on screen that their appointment's been booked. They can come back and it reminds them each time. They'll be able to see that whenever they log into the app. Over on the practice side, we can see the request thread is updated with that appointment time, and that's visible here. It's also visible if the clinician goes to their appointment book. They can see here there's an EMIS appointment booked 11:20 for today with David Smith. So that's all been booked, and the patient was able to choose an appointment and book it online themselves.
The dulcet tones of Mr. Dan O'Shea from our support team that you may be familiar with there. So what I'm trying to build with this is, again, if I flick back to the system for a second, how do we move away from, we still want to build on the good foundations of digital access. We need to see somebody face to face. What loads of practices end up doing is closing the request off and reverting to the ledger. And so I want to move away from the on-the-day ledger as best as possible to try and give patients better flexibility and to try trying to help you guys managing clinical colleagues in helping to move the mindset on from the kind of analog time slot mode that they have been trained and is the default in primary care, to think about it being more of a conversation with patients. And it's difficult when you're trying to time box your day. So what we built is the appointment offer process, where you build it's not the same as your EMIS ledger. You build a simple, in this case I've built one for health checks, and I'm sure the eagle-eyed amongst you all can imagine where I'm going with this. So it's just a way to say which requests need to be seen face to face. How do we manage that? And can we, because we can write it all back to each system one later, we don't need to worry about double keying into the ledger or using how we built a widget so you can open the patient system one and book them in on the day. I'm not saying you'll use it all for every single request. I'll just encourage you to start to think about how you might use this. You can turn it on at your leisure. And so I'll quickly just give you a slightly slower example of what I'm thinking with this. Is if again look for my health check. In fact, I've already got the health check one open. I haven't I did today. Yeah, good question, Catherine. I'll come back to you in a second. Let's choose one. Doesn't really matter. I just want it to be me. Left leg is hanging off. There we go. Quite sad. So here's a couple of examples of appointments. So I built this health check one. The first thing that's good is let's try and give flexibility to the clinician that's needing to see them face to face. How long they're going to need to see them for. I know realistically you've got limited choice here, but if we move the system on this way, we're not thinking in appointment slot modes. If you did need to see someone for 15 minutes rather than 10, why would you not give the clinician that flexibility? So I need to see this person for 15 minutes and I send them an invitation. When I come to set up the my appointments as a member of staff, right? If I just find myself here, I think I've got a new tab for appointment settings, and so the sessions for those clinicians that see patients face to face will allow you to not make it default for everybody, but you could make it so in the sidings we're using our overflow for a clinic that a locum is working the next day to see people who need to be seen face to face as one example, and that's the only booking we're doing this way. But the idea is that we can say here's the slots, minimum book ahead time and so on, and how long I need in between booked slots, but we then allow patients to make the choice. So the patient gets this offer, and his left leg is hanging off. Again, it's multiple site aware, right? So you can multiple site aware, so you can offer if you're working across different sites. So you want to work as a PCN, okay? You want to do extended access this way. I know you've got other contractual considerations and so on, but there's lots of flexibility to be. And so the patient gets to say, in this case, just to choose which face-to-face is convenient to me. So I'm not now assigning the request back to admin to get them to contact the patient and say, can you come at this time? But it's going to, it's a bit of transition required to get for patients as well, and as well as you guys. But let's say we choose it, and because of today and the rules I've set, it can only fit me in on these slots, and I choose this slot, and that's my appointment confirmed, and I confirm it. Patient can cancel and change it. Similarly, on the other side of the house, this appointment, we built this simple looking appointment. I don't know what day it shows now. Get someone proper to demo the system in future, Mark. There we go. So here's my slot. The other thing I can do is if this was my on the day overflow, I can just book it in from here, right? So if you do want to continue to use your admin team, just click on a slot, search for an open patient, and it's going to show you their requests. So I can say, I think he had left leg hanging off. I can see, like, if I start typing, I'm going to get this guy's requests. So you can just now book that request needs to be seen face to face. I'm going to book them in. Here's so it's just a way for you to be able to think about managing taking it a bit step further, managing flow a bit differently, reducing the reliance on the ledger. Now, very good point made by Catherine at St. Peter's Hill about NHS England appointment data. So we have started a conversation about 3 or 4 weeks ago with NHS England, and they have agreed that we will send a GPAD submission on behalf of all customers. So they'll stop having to read your ledgers if you're using AskMyGP. All right. And so we're working through the technicalities, doing test data extracts at the moment, so that we can make sure we don't overlap with stuff they do read out of your ledger where it's completely valid versus stuff that's seen online. So we can offer through NHS England the GPAD reporting, so you don't need to worry about if you want to use this and then it's written back, it will count, and we're working out the the various specification that I'm sure some of you have seen, that it's counted in the right way. So hopefully this answers your question, Catherine, that we can satisfy that requirement. In terms of the appointment, it's not dependent on the Evergreen app. So the appointment offer will extend via, most of you guys have got just email turned on via email. So, right. So this is about obviously choice for the patient. If they're using the Evergreen app, they'll get a notification. If they're not, they'll get an email. I'm also extending the use of text. So we've got, I know you guys use text. We're looking to offer the ability to choose, for patients to choose how they receive the communication, be that email or text, and then but it's not dependent on any one app. So it wouldn't necessarily work with the NHS app in terms of the offer of the appointment, but it'd be on the patient's email. And once the thing's written back to System 1, it'll be available on any app that they use for record access, including NHS app and AirMid and etc. And yes, there's another question coming in. It does seem like duplication. It does, and I know how beautifully pristine some of these ledgers are in System 1 and how precious people are about them, because they've been refined for good reason over a lot of years. So you don't have to use this. It's just a way of potentially thinking about extending patient choice. So sort of, because of the way that, if you think about patient-facing services, where we started with Evergreen, you'd set some of your System 1 slots to be patient bookable, and you would then publish them on the app, or any app the patient chose. And because that's now gone away, patients do get confused / frustrated about the fact they look for appointments, including in our own app, the NHS app and others, and it says you guys are not offering any appointments because you're working at AskMyGP, online consultations. Now, I'm a firm believer that this is the right direction of travel, but that expectation around patients being able to have some choice, how do we find a way around that? So this is an idea to see if we can find a way for things that are for our on-the-day demand. I can make the ledger look as beautiful as it currently does in System 1, but only at the end of the day when I've written it all back, if that makes sense. So if you're interested in thinking about trialing it out, get in touch, and we'll happily turn it on for you. Like I said, we're gonna try it at the sidings, and I'll try and get them to come and talk at a future group maybe about how it's worked for them. But yeah, it is potential, I guess, duplication in terms of setup, but hopefully patient choice and then simplicity at the right back end would make it worth considering. Okay, conscious of time, and I've got to allow plenty of time for you guys for any other questions that come up, and hopefully give you some time back. So that's the appointment offer process. Other bits and pieces we've been working on, obviously the next thing we're trying to put into production is this outbound forms processes. So next month we'll have a session on how you set that up, how you create your groups, how you publish forms, try and do some of the things we talked about earlier in terms of QoF and other types of recall, and try and make it, you can reach out to patients as well as them reaching in, building on those foundations you've had. Okay, I think in a nutshell that's all I wanted to cover in here. Let's just make sure, let's go back to our list and make sure we've done a good enough job. So the only thing I'm not showing you is the patient contact widget. So this is it's called Evergreen Connect, and if we're installing something on your gateway, to the question earlier, we have a widget that you can use patient contact, because we accept that obviously your clinical system is your clinical system, and so a way for you to be able to call up the patient in System 1. So that works. It looks like all of the others. So it's not really worth me wasting your minutes demoing it. So you've all got other things that you'll be using in the practice that call up that. But the widget's available, and as part of when we install the write back for System 1, because we do need to put something on your gateway, you get that anyway. So the ability to have context widget to bring up the patient in System 1 without you having to search, basically. Okay, so hopefully plenty of progress. A couple of things that are not on the slide that just have struck me to talk to you about is that we've made some enhancements to support PCN and federation type working. So I'm just going to quickly show you that because it's linked to what I'm doing in Hyde. So if I just go back here, one of the things that we can do with a request when we assign it, let's say Mark's left leg that was hanging off, We've now got a new tab here, which we can configure called Network, and you can share or transfer a request between other services. So what I'm using this for in Healthy Hide Team, which is the one I've been talking about, is this winter they're doing an ambulatory care service as a PCN. So they have got the top 5 things, avoidable things that can be dealt with in an ambulatory service, and there are reasons why patients get admitted later to Tameside Hospital in their case last winter. So they pick 5 things: COPD, CBD, usual kind of cellulitis, a couple of other things, UTIs, and so they're offering an enhanced service. So if a request comes in, what they're offering for their practices is the ability to transfer the request up to them. So I've configured this in the background. We set up how you do it. I've got a safety net here, so I've got minutes. Obviously, my demo system in yours it's hours, but you can say if they don't pick it up the other side, then send it back to me, so we don't lose things in the system. But the idea is you can copy to your record before you send, because it depends on who you're sharing it with and why, or you can just skip and transfer it up to the Healthy Hide team. And yeah, so you can see in the commentary here, Mark Hindle transferred it to Healthy Hide team, and Healthy Hide team is going to appear in their request in the system. Now, there's so many use cases. Yeah, exactly right, David, in terms of urgent care hub, that kind of thing. There's so many different use cases for this. So there's 2 different ways to think about it. The share, obviously, this is now currently already shared, so I can unassign it, bring it back from Healthy Hide. Share is a bit like getting a second opinion. So share is going to put it on their list and on yours, but you retain ownership of the request. Transferring is going to parcel up the request and the demographics and pass that to them to complete. So the expectation with a transfer is the other side is completing it, and then with a share, you're perhaps both working in it, or you're not sure, or you might be sharing it with someone for an opinion. And I'm really open-minded about the use cases for this. There are so many, and I want you guys to feel unconstrained in how you think about it as an area. And I also want it to be different than other software providers in this regard. So my view on this type of functionality is that you pay a per patient per year price for AskMyGP, and this is a patient request, right? So there isn't, none of the functionality we've talked about so far, requires any additional fees or anything like that, and that's the way I want us to run this moving forward. Is you're paying for your patients to have the facility and for your staff to hopefully benefit from our innovations. But obviously, happy to talk to anybody about helping you to do it, which with our customer success team. But yeah, social prescribing, another great example. If what we're and the other thing is also true is we can reject it and pass it back to the practice. And so back to my Hide example, practice receives request, transfers it up to Healthy Hide for ambulatory care in the same configuration without any additional work. It's the PCN, Healthy Hide in this case, that are also talking to that same population about health checks. And here's the beautiful thing, if you're a geek like me, is that the detail of what we do then gets written back to the practice the patient belongs to. That makes sense, right? So as that you're not out of the loop clinically. So what we've done is made this concept of a parent ODS code for a patient. So we know they're your patient. Other people see them. They write back to your. Now I know you guys use System 1. That's kind of how System 1 works. For EMIS users, that's like fire, and it's an impressive innovation. So, but I think that it's really important that if you do transfer it back, you can get things coded back into your system. So that's one of the big advancements. And to go with that, what we're doing is allowing you to have multiple ODS codes against your practice or against your PCN or however you set up. So what that means in practice is when we do this search for a patient and you do spine lookup, instead of just being limited to patients at your practice, we could say for the PCN, they're allowed to search on the spine for these 5 ODS codes and return patient matches. So it's not going to duplicate patients, but it is going to give flexibility for that kind of service. Okay, I've done a lot of talking at a very fast speed. Didn't apologise at the beginning for it. So I'm going to flip back to the deck for a second and just try and a couple of other things to highlight, and then we'll see what questions you have. We've seen the video. I want to quickly just talk about us getting involved. So we acquired a business called Omnis Healthcare, which is a provider of NHS secondary and primary care services, and that's the vehicle that's taken over the sidings contract. And it's an interesting move. It gives us some flexibility. In some other areas of the country, we're talking about using this vehicle to offer enhanced clinical services. So you may have seen last week that the OCVC framework nationally, there was an engagement from NHS England to start the consultation process around providers being able to offer clinical service on top of online consultation tools through the same procurement framework. In practice, what that means is for us is we can start to, we're building, since we've acquired Omnes, a central triage hub for our 9, soon to be 10 practices and about 120,000 patients. And we're going to offer us our own practices triage as a service. So there is potential in terms of how you think about how this evolves in your local areas and practices, where you could potentially lean on a CQC registered outsourced provider through the same framework to potentially say, deal with a percentage of your work that comes in from patients as if we're your practice, and then pass you the things that need to be seen with an agreed specification. So it's very early days, but those of you that are interested in that type of thing, by all means, contact us afterwards and float your ideas. I'm open-minded, and we're talking to all sorts of different areas about different configurations there. Meanwhile, back in Lincolnshire, here's the happy gang at the sidings when we went live with Evergreen Life app. So we did it differently here. We went through patient record access. The reason for that is that I genuinely believe that empowered and informed patients will ultimately ask better questions of health and care when they need to, and so we've given them full record access. All users of the NHS app with the COVID pass from the beginning of November, as you'll be aware, are going to get full record access. So we want to be ahead of that conversation, and we want to see where we can ultimately do the next round of enhancements, which will be to, when the person says medication query in AskMyGP, I want to say, well, we know you're taking these 4 things. Which one is it, right? That's how they're bringing the Evergreen Life app and AskMyGP together. I also want to make that available on the web too, so it's not going to be just exclusively to the app, but it will be predicated on record access. Patient says medication query, and then we give them a list, and you say, is that omeprazole 20 milligrams twice, whatever it is, and then that's the one I want to query. And so you can get better quality requests as a really simple example 3. And then I also want to work with you guys to work with patients. So I'm, one of the fun parts of being a contractor of a practice is to meet with the PPG. So I've met the PPG both as Evergreen and as we own Omnes and Evergreen obviously at the sidings, and asked so I want to help you if you want to be helped in terms of engaging with the patients, representatives and the communities you serve. One simple example was this little short video clip I filmed at the sidings. Forgive my mobile phone footage, if you will, but I'm really up for working with you to help if you want to, and with our marketing team too, not just me and my efforts to try and promote the use of your services.
Welcome to the Sidings Medical Practice.
Here at the Sidings Medical Practice, it's now faster and easier for our patients to contact us through the Evergreen Life app. Since launching the app, we're now able to deal with over 97% of our requests on the same day, and most of these are dealt with within a few hours. When you use the app, you don't need to queue on the phones, and you can make your request in your own words. You can also download and view your medical records and order your prescriptions all in one place. To get started, all you need to do is go to your app store and download the Evergreen Life app. Once you've connected your accounts, you can contact the practice, and if you need any help along the way, the Evergreen team are here to help.
When you need us, just press the Ask My GP button.
So a simple amateur, forgive me, but a video clip. The reason why I show you that is actually there's a serious point behind it, which is that one of the things that we needed to do at the sidings was not put all of the additional workload on our practice admin team. So what we've done is, and this is one of the quirks of being able to be, to be NHS accredited providers and to be a software house, is I've stood up additional team inside Omnes that are DBS checked, NHS accredited with NHS credentials, we're sort of a temporary help desk. All right. And so what I'd like to extend the offer to you guys is what we've done with that is they've got access to the system, one of the sidings, to help patients get connected and to help patients having issues with navigating the system, either from AskMyGP website perspective or from record access. And what I think that's going to come later this year and into next as patients start to engage is more workload at the practice to say, how do I get online and get access to my records? And what I'm prepared to do is to take that into our help desk. If you're interested in doing that, we can. One simple thing is we can run your gateway on one of our virtual machines, great. But actually, we can also offer an extension whereby when you ring the sidings, if you do that now, you'll get offered a phone number that's to a dedicated siding support team that is actually part of Evergreen, and patients then dial that number to get ask questions about access and so on. And I think it's just an important way to think, important flexibility, I guess, for you guys to think about how you can respond to patient request. Right, a couple more things from me, and then I'm going to shut up and ask you to see if you've got any questions. I just want to quickly illustrate. Again, see the slides afterwards, but I do believe that this kind of common digital foundations, you guys are already, a lot of you using AskMyGP. I do think that engaging with the outbound, engaging with your place and population from a clinician, from a practice and PCN standpoint is something we can help you with, and hopefully I've give you a teaser for that today in terms of some of the things we want to innovate with you. And I strongly believe that this is a similar slide to I showed you at the beginning, but that empowered patients will then start to engage locally, and then we can help you with things like IIF. So you don't have to send them a text to say, what's your ethnicity and how much do you drink and do you know how to work your inhaler, crude example. But you can instead start to make it more of the way we do things around here from the same tool they're used to using to access care and build that consistency of patient experience. And I've mentioned the full report a couple of times. I mean, so far online consultations has extended to just engaging with the communities, but I think you're only a short hop away from asking patients questions and engaging with them around all of the things that you do anyway, but from one potential place. And that's before patients also start to engage around how they engage with the app if they choose to. And I think that's fully supported by the full report from this year. And I've mentioned Hyde to death, but Hyde use our software already, and we're going to work with them in the ways I've described to you to hopefully start to move this on. And in that case, what we've done is we've offered to the PCN that every practice, regardless of what they're using, can use AskMyGP to engage with the PCN for free. So if that means if they don't want to change from online Engage Consult or eConsult or AccuRx at the front door, that doesn't preclude you as a PCN from using AskMyGP. It just means that we can reach over the top of the practice to patients, and they can say that the PCN wants you to engage, and they can engage directly. Or the practice staff, in a couple of examples, could key in the request for the patient using the widget, so they don't have to actually key things in, but they can make the request on behalf of the patient. So if they're using eConsult and they got a request in for let's say a UTI, and it's a PCN service, we could move that request into AskMyGP to push it up to the PCN. So this is not a plan for world domination. We want to genuinely use these tools to help you deliver services. And those of you that choose, or those in your areas that choose nothing on paper, I'm not sure I'd go quite to that extreme, but those that are using something else shouldn't be excluded from our conversation, and we can innovate with them too. Messy slide, one to consume in your own time, but this is effectively some of the art of the possible with that type of thinking. You could even have all your requests going into one hub and then back out to you, and that could potentially even be a third party now. So there's lots to think about in terms of how you could use this new functionality in a hub PCN type way. Patient on the left hand side, we can move it around, make sure the right fit people get it, write it all back. And then also the next big project I'm going to get to probably before Christmas is working on the dashboard in the reportings in AskMyGP to give you much better tooling, real-time demand views, and so we're on that next. Okay, so I think, conscious of time, I've done a lot of talking. I'll just see if anyone's got any questions.
There's some really interesting looking additions there, Mark. I think that there are a few bits in that are quite exciting. things like the forms at the front door, are they available to start playing with now? Are they available to start using, or is that in the development phase?
No, it's available now. The only thing that's not ready now is an editor for you to build your own forms. So that's the limitation. So we're putting a link on the front screen of AskMyGP to a list of the available forms. But in terms of setting it up, you know what forms you want, either new or existing, and where you want them. You just need to let me know, log a ticket, and we'll get it done. And it should be a very quick thing. I am getting the guys to make it so you can make the configuration yourself, because obviously you shouldn't be dependent on us.
Yeah. So if we wanted to put forms onto there, ultimately we'll be able to choose the ones we want to go onto there. But at the moment, it's just a case of come to you and ask you to pop them on. Brilliant. That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Tessa?
Take myself off mute, that would help. It's just a quick thing, really. We started to use the integrated download, worked around the gateway thing. It's coming along quite well. We had hoped that the automated download, one of the things that we can get quite complex, lengthy chains of AskMyGP bits and pieces to be entered into a patient notes that might take place over several days, but that actually there's no date and time stamp when you put it into the AskMyGP, into the System 1 New Journal. And we just wondered if there was any plan for the individual entries to have a date and time stamp against them, so you could get, I know you can see it when you go back into AskMyGP, but if a clinician is seeing them at a later date or somebody's, it's to get a better idea of the time flow of the query.
So this is in the block of text, the individual.
Yeah, when it gets copied into System 1, it doesn't give you an idea of the date and time that the individual queries and responses were made. And my guys all work 2 or 3 days a week. So if it's a particular doctor, there can be time delays built into the responses, which sometimes, it gives the wrong impression. And others, when you're looking back at the past, trying to work out exactly how quickly something was actioned, it would just be useful information to have. Yeah,
really good point. It's rubbish that it doesn't already do it. We'll get that sorted. Yeah,
it's it goes in as a nice block. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Any more?
Do you have a simple place where if we've got any development requests, where we can kind of chuck them in and see where things are going on their development request level? I don't know whether that's sorted.
Yes, then on the help desk system as a ticket is the quickest way, right? It's the relatively simplest way to do it. I think you can also email in the ticket, but ultimately I want to see a list of. I want this to move a lot faster. Obviously, we've started from a relatively slow development list with AskMyGP, so we've got a lot of ideas. But I want you to be able to vote them up and down and give your comments on them, and also put them in and see a pretty quick cadence. So to start with, get tickets in, and I guess the onus is on us to prove that we can respond quickly.
No, that would be really helpful. Thanks. That'd be very good. We'll just keep hassling Dan then for now.
Keep hassling Dan, and Dan is, we're same with forms. I mean, we're working through the list. We're adding more resources, and so there's hopefully you can get a quicker response, and we're here to help you use the system. And I guess open invitation to anybody here or anyone listening to this afterwards is that if you want to engage with us in terms of any of the things we've talked about, or anything else you want to do with the system, then please just get in touch. We want to make this a conversation rather than just hopefully you don't just hear from us when it's time to renew the system. We want this to be a conversation we're in all year round. So please take the opportunity if you're interested to do so. And with that, I think, Nigel, I'll ask you to follow up with people and see if this has been useful and they want to do it again afterwards, and what frequency. But I think other than that, we can give people 15 minutes of the day back, which they'll hopefully thank us for.
Great stuff. Well, thanks very much, Mark, on behalf of all of us. And I'll probably circulate just a quick email to see how frequently people might want to do this, because I know it's one of those things that's probably most beneficial in the first couple of months, and then after that wouldn't probably extend the frequency a bit. But anyway, thank you for that, and thank you everybody for attending, and I'll be in touch. Okay,
thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.